Hey everyone, this is Caly. I have a really fun and festive card today using the Talk About It set. Now the stamp set and die set are a coordinating set, but it also coordinates with the Build a Taco die set. So you'll see that in the images there, and I'll show it for you here so you could see the sets together. Here's the stamp and coordinating die set, and then here is the standalone set that can also coordinate with that stamp and die set. That stamp set is super fun if you're in the mood for coloring. I like to paper piece, so what I've done is I'm using the Build a Taco die, and I've used Simon Says Stamp cardstock to die cut lettuce, some meat, tomatoes, and cheese there, and I've die cut 2 taco shells here. I also like these tacos because they're bigger than the image that's on the stamp set, so they are really going to be the focal point of my card. And if you're familiar with my work, you know that I never leave paper pieced projects alone without ink blending. So we're going to be doing lots of ink blending here, and I'm going to go fast and skip through a lot of the mundane, repetitive things. The taco shells are die cut from lemon chiffon cardstock, so it's a very light yellow. I'm ink blending with some honey ink. It's a little orangey yellow color. And then to give the taco shells some texture, because taco shells have texture on them, right? You can run this through a die cutting machine with an embossing folder. I've seen several projects using an embossing folder to give the taco shells texture, and I thought that was genius. I'm just using 2 Copic markers to add some dots to give them texture. So once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and ink blend all the little tiny pieces of the taco toppings. I use the same honey ink, and I am adding some shading to the straighter cheese pieces. They are small, and I know that I'm creating more work for myself, but I always think that it is worth it to add the details. I'm using sponge applicators from the Rainbow Splash collection from Simon Says Stamp. These little sponge applicators are so fun to use. They really are great for flicking on ink for tiny little things like this. On the more curly cheddar looking like cheeses, I used an orange ink. And then on the lettuce, there are 2 different shapes and sizes. I die cut them from several different greens, and I'm flicking them with artichoke ink. And I'm using artichoke ink on all of them. And then I'm going to use mocha ink on all these little bits of ground beef. I gotta give props to Sherry Carroll for designing this one because it is so much fun to put together. I never thought I would be ink blending ground beef. Okay, so moving on to these little triangle pieces of tomatoes, I'm gonna ink blend the rounded ends with a dark red color just to give them a bit more color and shading. And then for the onion pieces, I guess you could leave this white or even die cut it with purple cardstock. I am using a purple Copic marker just to line the outer ridges so it looks more like a realistic sliced red or purple onion. So these pieces do come apart a little bit. They are sliced all the way through except at the very ends. And so I am able to push the layers back and then continue to outline the outer ridges of the purple onion slices. So I'm going to do that to all of these little white die cut pieces of onion. And then I will go ahead and piece my tacos together. That's the fun part. To put my tacos together, I'm going to start with the lettuce. You can build your tacos however. Not everybody likes all the toppings, right? A lot of people love olives. I didn't grow up eating olives, so olives are never on my pizza. They're never on my tacos. They're never in anything that I eat. But it's not like I won't eat it if it's in there. It's just not my topping of choice. So like I said, I am going to build my taco with some lettuce. So I'm putting the larger pieces of lettuce in the background, and I'm using the smaller ones to adhere to the front of the taco, if that makes sense. And that way I can start building and creating lots of layers and dimension with all the different pieces that I ink blended and added color to. When I'm done making my taco look full with all the fluff from the lettuce and tomatoes and toppings, I'm going to add a few little pieces of ground beef to the ends of the tacos and just 1 or 2 on top just to add additional color up there. And also, does anybody hate that all of the meat is at the bottom of the taco? I mean, when you eat the whitest part of the taco, you're getting more toppings than anything else. So I feel like maybe they should make taco shells rectangular shaped. I can't even believe I'm talking about a taco in a card making video, but here we are. And I am having so much fun putting this together and doing this voiceover and talking about tacos. Okay, so back to the card. I am almost done putting it all together. I have all of the fluff there, and the last thing I need to add is some cheese. So these little pieces of string cheese are tiny, so I'm adding a dab of glue and just sticking them here or there, a little bit of the, I want to say Monterey Jack, maybe Colby Jack cheese here and there, and then I'll add the more curly cheddar looking like pieces of cheese in between and in other areas to fill up the taco and make it presentation ready. Okay, so look at these tacos. They are so much fun, and honestly, do tacos ever look this nice? No, right? But they really are what you call presentation ready, like in the photos when they do advertisements. So the flaps do come apart, and I don't want those to be visible, so I'm just gonna glue them shut. And then I can set them aside and work on the fun fringe background. For the background, I'm going to die cut a frame using the Simon Says Stamp stitched rectangles. The stitched rectangles die has stitching on the outside of the cut line and on the inside. So this rectangle has a nice stitching line all the way around. And it's going to allow me to have something for my fringe to attach to. And for the fringe, you can die cut something if you have a fringe die, or you can just hand cut the fringes. I'm using the Lawn Fawn Scalloped fringe border. It's the only one I have on hand. And I am going to ink blend on copy paper. And I'm using copy paper, just regular printer paper, because it's thin and I want to give it that tissue feel. I have 5 strips and 5 colors of ink here that I'm ink blending these paper strips with, and I'm roughly doing it because it does not need to be perfect. So I'm using 5 different colors of positively saturated inks here and quickly ink blending the 2-inch wide strips. I figured I could cut 2 fringe strips from each of these pieces of paper, and I do end up needing another strip. So I'll do that off camera, but I just wanted to show you how rough this looks. So the paper is super thin, and it doesn't need to be perfect because when you die cut it, it's going to be fringed and the imperfections are really unnoticeable. And if they are, it's really just going to give your background a bit more texture. So I've die cut that scalloped fringe border using all of that cardstock. And on the back of this frame, I'm adding some terrific tape. So it's just double-sided terrible tape. And I lined all the way around my frame with it. And I am going to just stack the scalloped ends all the way down. And it was a lot easier for me to just do it from the top so I could see where I was lining up those scalloped fringe border pieces of paper. And so I'll work my way all the way down, and like I said, I needed to die cut more, so I went ahead and did that off camera to finish up this background. And when I'm done, I'm going to cut off the excess on the edges. This makes such a festive background for our taco card. Now that I'm done, I'm going to use some more double-sided adhesive and then go around that frame again. Now, if you want your fringe center to have more support, you can add some adhesive in there too. I didn't want to risk tearing it up. You can also use little dabs of glue. I was okay with just the frame being adhered down. So I adhered that to a card base. And now I'm adding some 3D foam squares to the back of my tacos so that I can prop them up onto my card for some extra dimension. Look how fun that looks. Last but not least, we need a sentiment. So I'm going back to the stamp set and I'm going to emboss in white over some black cardstock a sentiment that says, "Let's talk about how awesome you are." So I'm going to prep my black cardstock here with some anti-static powder tool, and then I will stamp that sentiment with some clear embossing ink, and then I'll add some white embossing powder over that and then heat set that. And what's great about this stamp set is the sentiments also have dies. So I love that, and I use the coordinating die to die cut that sentiment. If you decide not to buy the die, obviously it's easy enough to make this a quick rectangular shaped sentiment. I'm using some 3D foam strips here to adhere the sentiment to my card, and that will also match the height of the 3D foam squares that I used. And that finishes my card for today. So much fun, you guys. If you're interested in any of the products that I used today or the color combinations that I use, be sure to check out the links below as well as on the coordinating blog post where everything will be listed for your convenience. Thanks for talking tacos with me today. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.